Before I attempt to set this up with the Synclavier Regen and the Groove Synthesis third wave, I thought I'd just give you a quick overview of what the ROLI Seaboard Rise is, in case you don't know what it does or you don't know what MIDI polyphonic expression is. The one I've got here is the Rise 2. You can see it's slightly different to the Rise 1, if you know what the Rise 1 looked like. That was black, this is like a charcoal grey, but other than that, on the surface of it, they look pretty much identical. The big difference really when you're playing it is that on the top of these little white lines here and the black ones that you can't see on the camera, they protrude a little bit so you can find exactly where the centre of the key is. So when you're doing little pitch bends, you know exactly where you are. So there I'm using MIDI polyphonic expression. We've got 5 degrees of freedom, or 5 dimensions of control, as it were. We've got velocity, then we've got pitch, we've got that slide we've just seen, we've got pressure, and we've got a release velocity as well, although this sound isn't doing much on that. And you're currently listening to this Equator 2 software that comes with the Rise. And it's actually a stunningly good bit of software. I think it's $249 on its own. So if you include that in the price of the Rise, you can justify the costs a little bit more to yourself. But it's a really great little bit of software. You can see in the center here, the controls we've got for those 5 dimensions of control I've just mentioned. So strike, glide, slide, pressure, and lift. And we can change the way each of the tones reacts to various pressures and slides. Really quite complex. So you've got tons of control over everything in this. And it's a really super complex bit of software. If we go into the modulation matrix, it's just on this one tone alone. But I say it's complex, it's actually like a standard synth, but there's just loads of modulation options. You're getting it mind-bogglingly so, actually. So if we come to a modulation source, let's look at the pressure. That's controlling 6 different parameters, but it seems like everything can do it. If we come to the LFOs, you can see LFO3 is modulating a couple of things. One of those is Math 4, and these are the maths parameters over on the right-hand side. And these are a bit like the things you get on stuff like the Microwave XT, so you can take different sources, you can add them, you can multiply them, you can do different things with them to get massively complex modulations. If we come to source 1 on this, for example, in here you've even got the other math modulators as sources for the other ones. It's just incredibly complex. And then inside all of these, we've got transfer functions. So it changes the scale of the modulation. And we can see here we've got add, we've got multiply, quantize, max threshold and min threshold, and we've got a random one. And I know I've jumped straight into mad modulation there, but that's what this is all about. It's about controlling things to a degree that you wouldn't normally do. And on that software again, we've got, I think it's 6 separate oscillators. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, 6 oscillators, and they can be wavetables, they can be samplers, they can be granular synths or noise. Go into a wavetable, for example. We've got a huge option of different wavetables, and I've even dropped in with Profit VS banks as well, which of course are available to buy on starskycar.com. But I just thought I'd show you that synth and the modulation options really, so that I can explain what's going on the left-hand side of the hardware. These 3 sliders and this little pad can send MIDI controls, or can be used as they are at the minute to set the sensitivity of the pitch bend, of the slide, which is the up and down, and the pressure. So if I take the slide off, for example, it's not doing anything. And if I click the on-off button, these are our MIDI CC controls. And if we take a look at the software there, we're now controlling these macros. These 2 buttons can be used to flick through the tones on the Equator software, and these are octave controls. Plus, if we look on here, we've got a little XY pad as well, and that's modulated by this little XY pad here, whether we're in the sort of control mode or the MIDI CC mode. So yeah, overall, it gives you loads of control over your electronic instruments. but I'm not sure OMD would appreciate me murdering their track. But hopefully that gives you a good overall idea of what it does. So let's try and do something with the Synclavier Regen. With any bit of hardware, you're going to have to tell it it's being controlled by an MPE synth, because MPE sends out 16 up to 16 different MIDI channels. So the synth has to know how to deal with it. So in this, we go to Setup, we go to the MIDI control, and you can see here we've got MIDI MPE on or off, and I've got it on. Okay. And the way each synth's going to deal with it is going to be slightly different. So on the Regen, for example, if I hit a key here, it's quite dull. Let's take the pitch off. Say dull, the filter cutoff's down. I hit this one. It's much brighter, and that's because I'm hitting it halfway up the travel. And if we look at the modulation options on this, we can see the mod wheel is to filter cutoff. So with anything that you're going to be playing with, you will have to go in and have a little tweak of the parameters, and it's going to be the same for any synth with any MPE controller, to be honest. So if we come in here, we edit that, and we can even take that off, take the range off. And that's not doing it. Or we could, on this, for example, we can do various things. So it's flat for this section, and then it only starts brightening there. Let's see if we can do something like that. Change the range there to there, and then change the shape. So something like that. So between 0 and halfway, it's not changing. And then I have to go in and change the filter on this as well. And let's just do that. Filter cutoff. We do that. And go back into this. And I'm making it look like a bit of a hassle actually, but it's not really. It's edit, range. So let's put the output from there to there. So now when I hit there and there, it's the same. You can see the mod wheel position, or what this is counting as the mod wheel position, as halfway. Let's change the shape on that a little bit more, shall we? Yeah, so that's lesson number 1. If you've got an MPE synth, put it into MPE control, and then you will have to play around with the parameters for it to work for the sound you're playing with. Which, going back to the Equator software, is exactly what you're doing here in these bits. We're just adjusting how the tone reacts to the different incoming control. And if you don't have that amount of control on your keyboard, there's always the ROLI dashboard. So we can see we can change things on this in a similar way. And this is basically calibrating how it sends different controller messages. But it does look very similar to the sort of control we've got on the Regen, doesn't it? Anyway, I've got a little patch in here I've been playing with already. And this has got an LFO on the cutoff. And I've set this up so as you move your fingers up the slide position, it slows it down. And that means you can have one slowing down with another speeding up. And I can't think how else you'd do that. Really nice effect. And if you do want to fine-tune that sensitivity, you can come into the dashboard and play around with it. That's almost binary now, isn't it? Fast, slow. See that little dot just jumping from the bottom to the top. And the way you set up the modulations on the Regen is using the MIDI CCs. So on this, it's MIDI CC 74. We go into there, we've got MIDI CCs. If I come back, I can show you. If we go into edit from, and you can choose the MIDI CC. So you can choose any of them. I've got it on 74 here because in ROLI dashboard, slide position is MIDI 74. And we can also change the MIDI CCs on all these as well, obviously. So we can go in and change them with this, but I'll leave them where they were actually. Otherwise I'll forget what I was doing. I get myself confused. But yeah, overall, setting it up on the Synclavier Regen is super, super simple. Almost like plug and play. No issues whatsoever with that. Here we are then with the third wave from Groove Synthesis. It's an MPE compatible synth. But again, just as with the Synclavier Regen, it doesn't work unless you tell it it's receiving MPE. But actually, if your synth doesn't receive MPE, it's got just poly aftertouch, for example. If we go into the ROLI dashboard, we can change the type of MIDI it's sending out. So if we just set this to single MIDI channel, it'll work. But let's put it onto MPE because that's what we want to do. So go into global, scroll down through the MIDI settings to MPE mode, there it is, turn it on. And we're working. So if I just hold a note steady on the bottom and then vibrato up here, you can hear it in MPE mode. So let's make use of that, shall we? Let's do some modulation. Let's modulate, I don't know, the wavetable offset with the slider. So if we come to this, slider on this is MPE y-axis. So put the destination as the wave offset. Set the amount up. Cool. Let's go an octave lower. Yeah, let's just turn that pitch down a little bit. Great, and you just can't do that without MPE because obviously I'm only modulating the last note in each of the phrases. So you can't automate it on a synth. You could automate it in a DAW, but playing live, you need something to control that wave offset. So great. We do have settings in the miscellaneous here for velocity curve and the pressure curve. Got the velocity off at the minute. But you can still obviously control stuff with the ROLI dashboard. So let's play around with that slide setting. Which helps to control the sensitivity of the parameters with what you're doing on the keyboard, which exactly the same way as you're doing it with the Regen, really. So the third wave works with MPE, really easy to set it up on the synth and on the ROLI, particularly as you've got the ROLI dashboard to help you to sort of really fine-tune those parameters. The OB6 is an older synth, but it does have MPE capabilities. They did an update back in 2021, I think it was, update 1.7.4, in which they introduced the MPE. When you need to set it up, we need to go into globals, into the MIDI channel, and make sure it's on MPE. So where you'd select your MIDI channel originally, make sure you go all the way to the end, and we've got MPE in there. Come out of that, and then there's a couple of other things that you might want to look at as well. Bank plus globals takes you to global menu settings 3. We've got pitch bend amount, the individual note pitch bend amount. We can put these up and down. And then we've got the MPE or MPE y-axis destination, so what you're going to control with the slider. And we've only got a few options. We've got low pass filter, pulse width of 1, pulse width of 2, or pulse width of both, I think that is. So we'll leave it on the low pass filter for now. And there's one thing you need to do in ROLI dashboard, and that's set the number of MIDI channels to 6, because if you have it on 15, We've only got 6 voices on the OB6, so it'll be sending it to voices that don't exist, so you won't hear all the notes. That one's not playing, neither's that one. So let's set this to 6. There we go, let's come out to global so we can hear what we're doing. So there you go, the ROLI Seaboard Rise. I'm really impressed by it. I'm impressed by the sort of size of it. I'll just unplug it there and show you just once more how sort of handy and neat it is. And it is quite easy to use. It does take a little bit of time to get used to not having standard piano keys, but it's nice having these little edges on the top so that you can feel where the center of the key is. And I do like that you get full control of the keys or the whole depth of the keyboard. There's a gap between the F and the G here, and you can still control the tone within that gap. Same with the what would be the white keys. Just a really clever way of doing stuff. Yeah, it's nice, that, isn't it? And it really does breathe life into instruments that have MPE capability. Never really got it much before. People have complained about new synths not having MPE keyboards. And now I get it, because you get so much control, there's so much emotion you can put into something, especially if you're doing compositions for soundtracks and classical things. You know, you often see people playing a keyboard with a little controller next to it. You don't need the little controller now. You've got 10 of them here. So, yeah, really nice. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. I've got patches, I've got samples, I've got tutorials, all for the price of a half-fat macchiato with whipped cream for a month. And do take a look at my starskycar.com website. As I said earlier, I've got the Prophet VS waveforms in there. They may be of interest to you, but the stuff for free and the stuff you can buy, maybe buy some other little packs, because it does help to support the channel. Anyway, thanks for staying to the very end, and I will see you next time.